Phoenix Suns got a taste of a potential first-round matchup tonight, resting just about everybody. Can we learn anything from this game? What does Mikal's Iron Man streak mean in the grand scheme of things? And Aaron Edwards is here for another foul take. Let's have some fun on today's episode of Locked On Suns.
Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a contributor at Suns.com as well as Dime Magazine. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen today and every day. Pretty soon it will be playoff time, so keep it right here. We are on every single podcast platform. We are on YouTube. Scroll down just a bit on whatever platform you're finding us on. Hit that subscribe button. That is the best way to support the show. Let's see. The score right now, 75-41. Aaron Edwards is here for his weekly visit. I think you and I both knew, Aaron, that this game would not be close. We were recording during the game. There's not much to recap at all. Guys, I held out hope, but look, there's not going to be a lot. So we're going to hit the ground running here, Aaron. The Clippers are playing well. Like, the one thing about this team is they can score, and they did that tonight. Like, Norm Powell came back. He was one of those like very quick from doubtful to playing types of situations. He's at 17 points as we're talking right now, has not missed a shot. You have Reggie Jackson, Paul George doing their thing. So how do you feel seeing this team kind of come together? Like, this is basically the version of the Clippers that we should expect. We'll throw Kawhi Leonard out for right now, but this team can light it up, and we did just see it go to 6 games last year. How do you feel?
Yeah, like they just have they have one of the best coaches in the league. So that was always like the thing. You know where the bad coaches are, and that's usually not a thing that carries over well to the playoffs. But a good coach just carries well to the playoffs. And I'm not really worried about their roster as much as I am just worried about Tyronn Lue. I think we're going to win the series, but he makes series really hard. Like, he figures a lot out in a 7-game series, and he makes it really hard on you. So I'm not really worried about the team in general. I'm just worried about what Tyronn Lue is going to cook up.
Totally valid. I think most any series in the NBA, I think the Suns walk into with the coaching advantage. I think it's at least even when it's the Clippers. I mean, like, Lue has earned that. He'll try crazy things. He's not afraid to go really big, go really small. He has the respect of his stars where it's like, hey, defer to Reggie Jackson in crunch time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think he just has the team fully at his grasp. And with a roster that's so versatile, I think that's exactly right. That's why this thing went 6 games last year, right? I mean, it had no business doing that. I mean, you can talk about Patrick Beverley being wild and, you know, different guys stepping up and the alley-oop and all the different moments of that series. But like, the Suns just swept the MVP's team in the second round last year, and somehow it took them 6 games to get rid of the Clippers. So I think that has to be what scares you. Powell is another scoring punch for them. They're going to have like a full season of Reggie Jackson, whereas last year it took until the playoffs for him to really get going. I mean, you and I talked about this, like, it still feels like the Clippers would be favored to beat the Wolves, though. And so I'm not even sure this will be the 8 seed matchup.
Yeah, the play-ins, I think it's going to be more random than last year. I just didn't think the Warriors were going to lose to the Lakers and Memphis. I think that was the random thing. And I think every year, I think this is why the league wanted to do it. I just think every year it's going to be a random thing that happens like that. So we'll see. Like, the Timberwolves can get hot. Like, we know Anthony Edwards will drop 40 on your head randomly sometimes. So I just don't really know, like, what to expect from these games. Like, they're must win, and some of these people can get lucky. Like, that's why the NFL does one game. Like, I just think, and that's why the NBA doesn't. Like, it really comes down to coaches most of the time, coaching and just figuring it
Star
out
power,
for
right?
4 games. And that's why the NBA likes that, because the strategy of it. And the NBA has always shied away from the one game randomness of what could really happen if we really did like a March Madness style playoffs for the NBA.
Who has the best player in that playing game? Because I'll probably do a recap show after that game. I did that last year because, I mean, that Lakers Warriors game, like, I agree with you. The randomness isn't always somebody's going to go home pissed off one of these seasons because a really good team's going to lose. But that Lakers Warriors game was one of the best games I can remember all last season. So I love it from an entertainment standpoint. I will recap the game when the Suns find out who they're playing. But Cat or Paul George, like, I actually think that's pretty close. And a lot of this does come down to, you know, if it's close, who's going to step up? And I think that's actually tight, like very much tighter of a thing than it was at the beginning of this season, at least.
Yeah, I think this is going to be Cat's first go around at this. So I'm going to probably take Paul George and something like that. But also, like, Clippers wise, I wouldn't want to play Pat Bev in a game like that either. And that's what they're going to have to do. So I just like the randomness of it all. One game with Pat Bev, one game where Cat can drop 45, 50, one game where Paul George can go off. Like, I just think just the randomness, like Tyronn Lue's coaching really isn't going to come that far in a game that's really just with stakes like that. So I just like, it's just going to be a tough one because either or one team can have the best two players on the floor at any given moment. So I just don't really know what to expect from those two.
It's definitely the one I'm looking forward to the most of all the play-in games. I mean, the Nets thing, that's just interesting in its own way. But as far as two teams that I think are pretty evenly matched, and of course having the Suns be involved, that's the one I'm looking forward to the most. I do just want to say also on this note, so tonight, the reason it got to be this bad for anybody who missed the fact that the Suns rested everybody, probably should have said that at the jump. The Suns not just fall apart against the Clippers. They sat 4 of 5 starters. We'll get to Mikal Bridges and his streak and
Aaron Holiday's in the game now, by the way.
Finally, he must have slipped like Kevin Young or Monty like a couple dollars or something. He's not been able to get out there. But what I was going to say is, I talked about this a little bit in my recap of the Lakers game and the way DA played against them. I don't worry as much about some of this, like, you know, these teams that can go small and be really versatile. I don't think that's going to be as much of a trump card as it was last year. Like all last season, it was like, wow, you know, like the Clippers, the Raptors, like some of these teams, and the Raptors still gave the Suns trouble this season just a few weeks back, but I don't feel like that's going to be the Suns' kryptonite the way that it used to be. I think DA is going to be ready for that. And so I think this matchup scares me just a little less from that standpoint too.
Yeah, I think like we just have centers that can move a lot better. Like people were ISOing Sarge and Frank Kaminsky last year, and it was tough. Like Paul George was getting the matchup against those dudes whenever he wanted, and that was just a struggle. And like even though this game was a disaster, like Biyombo can stay in front of you. JaVale does his best to stay in front of you. And I just think scoring in general with some of these different lineups is just going to be harder for other teams than it was last year.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you just look and, like, there were times in that conference finals where Ayton, they just didn't necessarily feel comfortable going to Ayton when it was, like, Marcus Morris or Nick Batum on him. I just don't think they're going to hesitate in those types of moments anymore. I think that Ayton has figured it out, but I also think that has helped the team just trust him. Like, they don't worry about, is it going to be a turnover? Is it going to stop the ball? He can hit the mid-range. He can hit the hook shot. He's getting like really stretched out with that hook shot. It's starting to look a little bit Kareem-ish. Like at times there'll be like one a game where it's like, did he just run across the full paint and launch that thing? And it goes in. So I just think like, they're not going to be worried about this type of team as much. Yeah,
he's just confident from like the high post now, and he'll pull that free throw jumper up. Like he's not pumping as much or looking to pass it as much. Like he's known he can make it, but I just think it was a confidence thing. Like, should I shoot this? Like Booker's over there, Chris Paul's over there. Do they want the ball back kind of thing? Now he just confidently pulls up from that free throw line without really thinking or hesitating anymore. And if you try to come up, because a lot of people try to double him, because he does struggle with that sometimes. He doesn't see the double well that time every once in a while. But he's gotten really good at finding the corner three with JaVale or with Jay Crowder or Cam Johnson or somebody just in the corner now. He's gotten a lot better at making that pass.
Yeah, for sure. That was such a big question mark heading into last playoffs. I just don't. It's probably one of the bigger question marks still, because I don't know, is he at Jokic's level or Towns' level as a scorer? Like, of course not. But I just think I'm so much less worried about it. And I think the team is so much less worried about it. So just with the Clippers matchup being such a, sticking point with that particular facet of it, I want to throw in there. Like, I don't know how other Suns fans feel, but I'm not too bent out of shape about it. Let's move on to Mikal Bridges' streak. He was the one guy who did play. I think I have not really talked about it at all this year on the show, so we gotta give some props to the guy for playing game after game after game since he joined the NBA. So we'll do that in a second. First, though, guys, today's show brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all betting needs and sports info all year long. Find the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championship odds. You also have the MLB season starting. What else is going on? The Champions League, which I finally started to try to bet on and just fell completely on my face. So you shouldn't take my advice, but you should go to BetOnline and get educated and place your bets there. I'm looking, let's see here. What do we have? NBA. They put some other stuff up here. Lakers head coach next season. Here we go, Aaron. David Fizdale is getting some momentum because he's already on the staff and he filled in for Vogel. I kind of think that if they're cleaning house, they probably don't keep a lot of the people who are around. Quinn Snyder's plus 450. Let me see. Doc Rivers has gotten some noise. He's plus 475. Here's a fun one. Phil Jackson plus 10,000. LeBron James plus 15,000. Coach K is plus 10,000. BetOnline does a great job of those fun props, but they have you covered on news, info. They even have podcasts and articles, a ton of stuff to inform your betting, and then, of course, give you the place to do the betting as well. Head to the website today. That's betonline.net, or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so anyone who knows this Suns team, Aaron, knew that the Suns would be highly unlikely to bench Mikal Bridges. They benched everybody else in this game for rest, but Bridges, let's see how many minutes he's at as we're talking right here. 22. I don't think he's going to play anymore, but he got out there. And that's important because he has not missed a game in his NBA career. He played 11 seconds in his first ever NBA game, which was a win over Luka and the Mavs. He barely got in under the gun there and then slowly earned his way into the rotation. And then eventually Monty Williams' starting lineup. This was his 307th straight NBA game. He has not missed any. The only times he did were because of the stoppage and then the shortened season last year. Otherwise, he would be even higher. I was able to find, as of December 1st, 2020, somebody on some random forum that I found said Joe Ingles had the record at 281 games in a row. He missed time this year, so it's not his record anymore. But Bridges is up there. I wonder if he's actually higher than I think. I would love for people to comment because I could not find this anywhere. But how do you feel about the Iron Man stuff for Bridges? Because people are throwing that in his awards consideration. I just don't think it gets enough respect. I really don't.
Yeah, I just think it's how he looks. Like, you just don't expect a dude with that kind of body to be that durable. I really think that's what it is. It sneaks up on you. It's really unexpected. Angles is unexpected too, for like different reasons. Like, he just has just a different build. You just expect somebody that like Drew Holiday, like you expect a dude like that to just be an Iron Man, or just like dudes built stronger that just play different. And Mikal, he's a slasher and just like one of the best defensive players in the league. And he just doesn't get hurt, and he's tough. And he's from Philly, so you kind of should expect it. But it's just really surprising that a dude like that is that durable.
My number one reason I think he has been able to do this, because he didn't play at all, like in high school and college. He barely played in high school. I've actually interviewed his high school coach. He barely played because he wasn't that great. I think he was, by the time he left high school, he had only gotten to being a 4-star recruit because he kind of was one of those guys. He grew at the end. He got really good like junior, senior year, but he wasn't really a big part of the team freshman, sophomore year. Then he redshirts at Villanova. Then he's kind of a role player. That first title, like it's an honorary title. He wasn't really in the rotation. Then that final 2 years, the 1 year before they win it again, and then the year they won it, his last year, he was really in it. But I think that's what it is. He just didn't actually get reps when he was a kid. So now it's like he's just got energy. Also, I feel like the Joe Ingles thing, I think that's a little bit of racism against white people. I feel like you're saying he doesn't look athletic and so he can't play games. I think that's what you're trying to say.
You've seen him play. He just doesn't like, he's not like this defensive tough stopper or anything. Like he's just not built for, you would not expect. But like I said, just depending on like where these people are from, Australians are insanely tough people.
They're tough. It's funny though, because like I was thinking Gordon Hayward has almost the same exact body as Joe Ingles, and Hayward has not been able to stay healthy at all. So to your point, those dudes look very similar. They got
Hayward
similar builds.
Built. Like, so if anything, it's in the opposite direction.
That's true. He's more chiseled. I mean, Ingles is like, I mean, he's older. That's the real surprise that Ingles ever had that record. He's like already in his mid-30s, and he started stacking up games on top of each other. But the other thing about this that I did not know that you knew, we were talking about before we picked up, AC Green, I think I might have known, like I knew he had this longevity about him. I don't know if I ever knew he actually owned the record or what the record was. 1,192 games consecutively, 14 and a half straight seasons. He only missed 3 games in his entire career. That's like, I mean, we talk about Cal Ripken and all that, but like AC Green deserves some love. That's a wild thing to do, especially in basketball where you're not just like standing out there for half the game like baseball.
Yeah, and like some of that was early 90s too, right? Like he played in some rough times. So I just think like he should get an extra like 100 just for like surviving like a Pistons elbow, and because he got all his teeth knocked out in the game when he played for the Suns. I remember it like it was yesterday. He caught an elbow to the mouth and he was picking his teeth up off the floor and he still didn't miss a game. So I just think like that should just get added on to just extra games, considering he did play in a very different era.
He played 36,000 minutes, almost 37,000 minutes too. It wasn't like he was some scrub who was just getting in there, 10th man. Like he was a player. And like you said, the era, he was on like the end time Showtime Lakers. So he's, like you said, those Pistons teams. He's guarding Horace Grant in the finals one year. Like he was, they call that, like, if you go to the Wikipedia page, it says like the Iron Man of each league, and it has like each guy, AC Green, Cal Ripken, whatever. He is, he deserves even more credit. Again, like, not to take away from Cal Ripken. I don't know why we idolize that guy so much. Kind of weird, whatever. But like, he was not 6'9" and fighting Bill Laimbeer. He was just playing shortstop. So, wild. Mikal has a long way to go. Mikal has he's got to do what he just did his first 4 years 4 more times to get there. But
and I'd rather he didn't. I just want him to relax for a little bit.
Okay. Maybe let's not hope he does. But at the very least, let's hope the money doesn't rest him the rest of this season.
Yeah.
It's cool while it lasts. Let him just naturally. One last thing on this. The craziest part of all of it, to be completely honest with Mikal, isn't the resting in high school or his body or whatever. How did he not get COVID?
Yeah, that's really nuts.
That's the wildest part, that it would be during these particular 2 seasons of all of the seasons to do it. But anyway, let's end the show. Aaron is back with a foul take, and I have one. It's not foul. I don't think mine is horrendous or bad, but it might be a little bit divisive. So we'll get into that in a second. First, so guys, today's show is brought to you by Locked On NBA. Just a quick promo for that show. If you've not been listening, we are pumping out content all throughout the playoffs. Check out whatever you missed the last night. I know the playoff games come fast and heavy. They're are games every night. You're going to be watching the Suns. You might miss the Eastern Conference game. You might miss the other games, especially in that first round. They stack those games up, and they're all going on at the same time. You can't keep up. Locked On NBA has you covered every single day, just like this show does, but at a league-wide level. All right, Aaron, I'll give you the floor. This is your segment. I'll sneak mine at the end, but what do you have for us? Aaron's foul take of the week. It's back. We missed a couple weeks, but what do you got for us?
Okay, mine is truly ridiculous. I know it is before I even say this, but hear me out. Elfrid Payton is hiding a bomb somewhere in Fredericksburg, Virginia. That's where Monty Williams is from. And he didn't tell Monty where it is, and he has the trigger to it, and that is how he's getting these minutes out there. He's holding Monty Williams' hometown hostage. That is my foul take.
I can't argue with any piece of that. I mean, except for the idea that we're accusing Elfrid Payton of like multiple
terrorism.
Crimes.
I know.
Yeah, terrorism, basically. I don't know if I can fully put my name on that. Like, that's why we have these labels here on the screen. Is that came from your box? I did not say that.
All caps in cricket media says that Elfrid Payton possibly has a bomb in Fredericksburg, Virginia. This has nothing to do with Brendon. I'm just stating what I think is the only logical answer to all that I'm seeing right now.
1 of 7 from the field in this game. I'm glad you brought this up. And I know you're like the Aaron Holiday stan of all Aaron Holiday stans. I talked about this a little bit yesterday too, after the Lakers game, because he got some time in garbage time. But what happened? I don't like, does Aaron Holiday just remind Monty too much of Drew and it started to be some PTSD? Like, I don't know what else he has to do here to get on the floor.
I have no idea. He was going like 5 for 6 and like 2 for 3 from 3 and shooting efficiently and D'ing up full court. And I just don't understand what else. Like, he tried to use the size excuse once, but Aaron Holiday could be 5 inches shorter than he is now and just be a better basketball player than Elf is. I don't understand the argument, and I don't see any scenario where he's even close to as good of a basketball player.
Okay, so we have the bomb thing. That's one theory. My theory, if we're really trying to put the tinfoil hat on and get to the bottom of this. So last season, we're all talking about Coach of the Year. Monty, like on every odds book, is the biggest favorite ever. But last year, of course, Tom Thibodeau wins it. Starting point guard for that Knicks team was Elfrid Payton. I wonder if this is Monty trying to once and for all prove, like, if I can get Elf to work better, then I'm definitely better than Tibbs. Like, is this just him saying, like, you guys screwed this up so bad with the Coach of the Year stuff?
I like that.
I can win with Elfrid Payton when Tibbs couldn't. I think that might be what's happening here.
I definitely like that. He wants to prove that he's the better Elf coach. I mean, Elf was a disaster, even for the Knicks, and you should see my mentions of Knicks fans just being happy that I have to deal with this now. But I could see that Monty is just like, if I can show them that I can get this dude to hoop, then it should have been my trophy all along.
I think that's what it is. Put Crooked's name behind this. This is the official representative thought of just accusing NBA players of crimes left and right. This is like some people on Twitter have these retweets don't reflect my employer or whatever. Yours do. And that's okay.
I'm pretty sure Jason would be down with what I'm saying, especially as a Knicks fan. He's probably said worse, actually. So my bosses are completely down with anything that I have to say about terrorism and Elfrid Payton being involved.
What's funny is he's so much worse even than he was last year. That's the funniest part of it. Like, he shot 43% from the field last year. He's at 39% this year. I really don't have an explanation. I think the Aaron Holiday side of it, though, like, that's just Monty really being like in his complete pop zone. Like, you're not playing if you're young and don't know what you're doing. Like, we have a championship to win.
Yeah.
You might have looked good for 2 weeks, but like, I can't risk anything. Go sit on the bench. Like that's what's happening, I think.
Yeah, I think then he kind of did the same thing to like Javon Carter. Like, I think you could use a dude that just will hassle somebody for certain games, but he's like Holiday's a better scorer. He's more confident getting to the rim. He's like he gets to the line, it seems like, more than like a lot of our bench dudes, and he's just smaller than them. I don't know. He must be awful at practice. It was like one of those things that like when I forget what football player it was. It was not like Jordan Love. It was Trey Lance. It was like Trey Lance must be terrible at practice if he can't beat out Jimmy Garoppolo. And I just think it must be one of those practice things. He must screw up a lot, but in game time, he just seems so confident. But I really just think like it just has to be practice because there's no reason at all that he should be playing below Elfrid Payton.
I don't have a great idea of it. Amani does though. Like, he actually, if you look back on his time here, he does make young guys outside of Ayton. Like, everybody has really had to earn it. And even Ayton, like, you know, they took the training wheels off finally last year, not having like a real backup, but before Monty, they had Rashawn, then they had Baines. Like, they kind of made Ayton earn it too in a way. And then Bridges, like, he wasn't even in the starting lineup at first for Monty. Cameron Johnson, like, all throughout the playoffs last year, I think a lot of us were like, why is he not playing more? Like,
yeah, and he went back and
Monty
forth in the starting lineup a lot.
Yeah. So it's probably that, but it doesn't make a lot of sense, especially when you see somehow Elf having more trust. But let's wrap things up with my take here. So, very cool moment last night with Booker giving the jersey to Al McCoy and, you know, honoring him with the franchise record. He's been in front of that microphone for all of those seasons. So if anybody is representative of like the history-making moment, it's totally Al McCoy. Very, very cool for Booker to do that. But he was also he happens to be every Wednesday. He's on Arizona Sports on the Bickley and Murata show. And I was on my way to the gym and happened to turn it on while he was doing his segment. And they play the little montage of his calls right beforehand. Everybody knows Al McCoy's go-to signature phrase, Shazam, right? Like, we all know that. It's on T-shirts that they've passed out in the past. That's what everybody, if you've ever heard of Al McCoy, that's what you would think of. My take, that's not his best call. His best call is on dunks, where he says whammo time. That's way better. Shazam is like, I know it's his signature thing, but he's called so many games now with good three-point shooting teams. Like the 7 seconds or less teams took so many threes. We've all heard Shazam so damn much. Whammo time is the best one because it was like one of the calls last night where he called a DA lob. Yeah. It was like over the head of Davis, whammo time. Like, Ayton gets it in. What do you think? Is it okay to not like Shazam? Whammo time sounds so much cooler.
I think you just hate that it's gone too mainstream. I think that's what it is. You're doing like the hipster, it's too mainstream thing. But Shazam it's just perfect. It really is. It's cookies and milk. It just feels good whenever he says it. And I know like when Q and Sean Marion and all those guys are hitting all the threes that like it should have gotten old back then, but it didn't. Because we went a lot of years without him being able to say it a lot.
That's true. For a while there, it was like Channing Frye and Troy Daniels were the only guys getting a Shazam very often. Yeah. No, it is me doing the hipster thing. I can admit that. I will admit that. Did you know he got Shazam from the superhero Shazam? You know, like the movie they made a couple years ago? That's where it's from. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know it was like a Billy Batson thing. That's crazy.
He was like because he's old, you know, an old man. Like, he was a fan of the comic. Like, he read those comics when he was growing up and loved Shazam because the Suns media room is like decked out. It's a big like shrine to Al McCoy. So all along the walls, it has a history, like a timeline of his career and really his whole life. So it gets to like whatever year when he unveiled Shazam for everybody, that call. Like, Al McCoy became known for his signature call, Shazam. he got this because he's a big fan of the comic book. So little history lesson for everybody on the second best Al McCoy call, which is second to Whammo time.
I'll take it.
All right. Okay, cool, guys. We'll wrap things up there. We'll figure out something to do for Friday. Monty Williams is telling us this season doesn't matter, but we're not going anywhere. We will be right here. And then Sunday, we'll have the Kings game to recap. We'll have the Jazz game to recap, and we'll be able to look forward to the playoffs a little bit. We'll see. And then next week, play-in and playoff preview. Don't go anywhere, guys. Subscribe. Thanks for making Locked On Suns your first listen every day. Support Aaron. Go watch All Caps NBA over on the Take Line YouTube channel. They're doing great stuff. He was a guest on the actual podcast as well recently from what I saw. So check that out too with Jason Concepcion. And we will be back tomorrow. Now go make Locked On NBA your second listen to catch up on everything you missed around the league on Wednesday night.